Hello, Sean here, Mountains Garage. Apologize for the old shop coat. It's kind of chilly in here today, and I haven't turned the heat on yet. I burned enough propane over the winter. I don't want to rush it by being wimpy on a day that I can just throw on my favorite old coat and be perfectly happy. By the time I get doing stuff, I'll be probably taking it off anyway because I like it about 50 in here. You can just see your breath. It's perfect for working. Enough about that. Today, we're going to mess with the OTC torque converter flushing machine that my buddy Charlie from New Hampshire sent me the link to last Thursday afternoon. By Friday noon, I was back at the house with it in my possession. I started to make the point in last Friday's video, but I never got around to it, what I actually paid for it. High retail on these used to be over 10,000 bucks. Still listed on the Napa website for 10,600. I've seen used ones listed in auctions sell between 2 and 5,000 bucks, and as low as $26. This one, in the garage I got it from, she claimed the guy worked on military vehicles, whatever that means. She didn't know, the lady that listed it, if it worked, what it did, and wanted $150 for it. I offered $100, and I loaded it up and brought it home. So I'm very excited to see if I can get it to work. Interestingly enough, I called OTC, like I said. I had downloaded the parts and service manual. I've read this. Seems like a pretty simple machine. It gave me all the filter numbers. So I bought 2, and I'll try to be a good boy and write with it. The filter fits. I have way too many filters that I have to look at the part number 40 times instead of just writing on it what it fits. So I'll handle that. Anyway, when I pull the filter off, I'll see if that thing's ever actually had fluid in it. I really can't tell if it has or not. The filter looks original. Everything looks original. It doesn't look like it's ever had an air fitting attached to it. Is it possible it was never used? I don't know. Again, my theory on these machines is they were so cost prohibitive, your average transmission shop or anybody wasn't going to have one. Government entities and stuff like that would have one, but they probably don't overhaul a lot of transmissions or flush out converters. So I don't think it was a huge market. I've only ever seen one in real life. It was a Ford Rotunda. Same machine, OTC, sold them under their name, Ford Rotunda and Excel, I believe. So all the same machine by the looks. So I've read my book. I'm going to finish prepping it for use like it was brand new because it seems to be the steps I need to take. I got an old torque converter out of the shed. It was out of a big block Camaro, I believe. Is it the correct application? I'm going to put it in the 64 dot Power Glide. Who knows? Until you bolt it in and fire it up and try it. So it'll make the connection between the engine and transmission and at least get the wheels turning. And somewhere down the road, maybe we'll make another converter choice. But for today, it's a perfect candidate. I've been saving it. Now I'll be able to flush it out. The machine calls for using solvent, which would be good if you had a drain plug in the converter. You could get all the solvent back out. I'm going to use a combination of tractor fluid and ATF. Any converter that I attach to it is probably going to be mine. And for instance, this one, I've been draining it. I drained it through a paper towel. Whatever's coming out looks pretty clean, so I don't believe I'm going to contaminate the machine too much. And if I do, we're only talking 4 or 5 gallons of fluid. And it has a filter. So let's get to the point where we're actually doing something fun. I vacuumed out the cabinet and spun a new filter on. There was virtually nothing in the old filter. I installed an air fitting where it never appears it had one. And I dumped a combination of tractor fluid and some universal Dextron ATF that I had just under these white screens. I probably should have added more Dextron than tractor fluid. The tractor fluid seems a little heavy. It was not low viscosity, but let's see if it'll pump. So I guess now it's time to plug it in, and I'll put it on pump. I won't go to air yet because I believe I want the lid closed for that. The rear panel pops right off and on. We're plugged in. Fire in the hole. I'll let that run for a minute and mix while I bolt on the torque converter. They tell me if I take this bolt out, I can take this over to the bench. And it comes with a bag of hardware. And we'll bolt the torque converter to the flex plate. It's bolted on. The hub pilot hole in here is bigger than the converter. So if this thing works out and it seems worthwhile, I'll no doubt make an adapter so it centers a GM converter perfectly. Right now I just kind of, you can see the center hole where the center of the converter is. I kind of eyeballed it. We'll see how critical that is in just a minute. Converter is mounted. I put the adapter in. It's spring loaded so you can get the center all the way inside the converter. And it just registers on this white L bracket with a wing nut. Pretty simple. That keeps it from rotating. Now I got power on one side and air on the other. I had to relocate in here in the shop. And I guess I can run it with the lid up. So I'm going to put it on pump for a minute, see what happens. Fluid coming out of the converter, that's a good sign. So now I believe I can put it on timer and then cycle. Stuff's happening now. Guess I'll let it run and see what happens. I'll close the lid. The ATF is getting mixed in better now. It really aerates the fluid, of course. Well, the timer works. Everything still looks pretty clean. I got an idea this torque converter was clean to start with, but at least I'll know now it'll be as clean as I can get it. And I'll drain it over the duration of time it takes me to build the Power Glide, which I've ordered a bunch of parts for. So I'm going to call this project a win. Can't beat the price for what it does, I guess. I can also flush. Again, I could hook the cooler lines and just pump through the cooler with fresher fluid. So, that's that. So that was fun. That whole project, if you will, probably took 2 hours. From initially unloading the machine to making it do something. Instructions are certainly helpful, although I'm sure I could have figured it out by myself. I may or may not have painted the ceiling doing it, so nothing like reading the book first. I have buckets of lower viscosity tractor fluid, but this was just an experiment. As that ATF gets worked in, I'm sure it'll be fine. In the end result, when I get most of it drained back out, it won't matter. Who knows, I may pump it out and put something thinner in there. I think straight ATF would have been a better choice. And now that I know it really doesn't hold, probably 4 gallons will do it, so that's not too bad. Well, it used to be. Prices of everything, as you know, are getting out of hand. But fortunately, this stuff I had out in the outside speed shop. Torque converters are definitely a black art, if you will. Even the experts often get it close, but not quite. So many variables, it's almost impossible to do so. Weld together converters like this one, you're pretty much trapped with what you have. You either have to send it back and have it cut open. When I worked at the second transmission shop, I only worked at 2, but the second one, when I got there, they just put up a new building for us guys, the repair and R&R side, and they took the old side of the building and made it a torque converter shop. They hired an old machinist who had never even seen a torque converter, didn't know what it really did, but he had a open account to go buy enough equipment to make it happen. So I remember the day he cut his first one open, he was oil from one side to the other. But he set up a robotic welder to weld them back up, and we started making our own torque converters. I was actually the one that bolted the first one in, and it worked. Basically, you cut the converter apart and look at it, and there's really not a whole lot to do in there. If it looks fine, you get all the material out, and there's nothing wrong with it. You basically weld it back up and balance it, and you're good to go. High performance converters, of course, they TIG weld the fins and they change the stator around, and they pretty much know what they're doing. They have a machine to test it with. I think they test it with 300 foot-pounds, and a certain RPM will tell them what ballpark they're in. So again, I'm not a converter expert. I know just enough to be dangerous. In my world, with the old junk like this, I'm just going to bolt it in and see how it reacts. You want it loose enough that you're not loading the engine too much, but you don't want to drive through it. You don't want it on the tight side, especially with an LS with stock connecting rods, because you're probably going to bend or break them. So you're better off with a looser converter, in my opinion. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. I've ordered a bunch of Power Glide parts, and I need to strip a few to see what I'm working with. That's a whole nother story, and that's probably coming up next. Thanks for watching.